More than 100 starving people have been killed by Israeli terrorists and US mercenaries in Gaza in the last 24 hours. They were killed after being lured with food supplies by dreaded Israeli terrorists. Meanwhile, the rogue regime of Donald Trump in the US has imposed sanctions not on Israel, not on Netanyahu, but on the Palestinian Authority and the Palestine Liberation Organization to retaliate the recent conference held in New York to seek support for the future state of Palestine. But the biggest setback to bloodthirsty war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu and his convicted American friend Donald Trump has come from the members of the Western media who have exposed their plan to ethnically cleanse Palestinians. Now let's look at these developments in detail. US Special Envoy on literally everything these days, Steve Witkoff, today met the war criminal wanted by the International Criminal Court, Benjamin Netanyahu. It seems both met to share their joy over the brutal slaughtering of hungry and starving Palestinians. It's not sure if they also exchanged congratulatory notes on the murder of 159 people who were killed by Netanyahu and his Western backers through the forced starvation in the last few days alone. Witkoff, a property billionaire, may have given hopes in January when he struck the ceasefire deal. But since then, his conduct has been pretty questionable. He has acted like just another dual US national. His meeting coincided with another statement from the Trump administration saying that the Israeli atrocities in Gaza would end today if Hamas released all the hostages. Well, Hamas had exactly proposed this way back in 2023, just hours after the 7th of October attacks. Don't take my word for it. This was reported by Times of Israel, an Israeli newspaper. According to this Israeli newspaper, Hamas had offered to release all the hostages on 9th or around 10th of October 2023 in exchange of Israel not launching a ground invasion of Gaza. War criminal Netanyahu rejected the proposal. And these barbarians still want us to believe that their objective is to release the hostages. In reality, they don't care about hostages. They have been dropping powerful bombs indiscriminately, despite knowing that those bombs could also kill their hostages. They have been starving the entire population of Gaza since March this year, despite knowing that hostages too would starve to death. But it seems Israelis are fine with Netanyahu and his gang. Hence, no mass revolt against the current rogue regime led by a bunch of medieval gang of terrorists. This explains why both terrorist Netanyahu and his Western backers don't want international media outlets to enter Gaza to tell the truth. That's because they know that the truth on Gaza, once reported, would leave these genocidal maniacs forever condemned. They know that they would no longer be able to fool people and preach the world about being civilized. This is an Australian journalist reporting from inside a Jordanian plane, tasked with dropping aid materials into Gaza. Just watch him. It'll give you chill down your spine. Earlier, a journalist from UK's Sky News too had reported exactly the same, highlighting censorship imposed by Israel.
We're now on our way to northern Gaza, where these pallets of food will be dropped from the aircraft to people on the ground. We were given quite a clear and strict pre-flight briefing that the Israelis have said we're not allowed to film any shots of Gaza from the air, and that if we do, these airdrop flights could either be cancelled or delayed. International journalists haven't been allowed access to Gaza since the war started, despite immense pressure and growing demands. And it seems they don't want us to show you images of Gaza from the air either.
And not to forget the reporting of BBC's Jeremy Bowen, which we had reported from this channel a few days ago.
So the Jordanians have passed on a message from the Israelis. The Israelis don't want us to film out of the window at the devastation inside Gaza. But I've spent 10 minutes looking at it with my own eyes. And I can tell you that communities in the north of Gaza that I knew well, very vibrant, tens of thousands of people living hard lives, but actually with a remarkable human spirit, are flat. There's nothing left of them. Now, if you've been watching satellite pictures, it won't come as any surprise. But seeing it is really something. Israel will not allow reporters like myself to enter Gaza to report the story. And they don't want us to see it, to film it anyway, from above either.
Not that we needed these three journalists to tell us that what Israeli terrorists have been doing in Gaza has been anything but ethnic cleansing, a war crime, a genocide, the biggest Holocaust since the Second World War. But these acknowledgements will go a long way in holding the perpetrators to account. Listen to former US Marine Tony Aguila. You can't get a more credible testimony than this. He was a part of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and saw firsthand how Israeli terrorists slaughtered hungry and starving children. Tony and his wife have 45 years of military service in the US Army between them. Listen to his gut wrenching eyewitness account on the Tucker Carlson show.
Or CEO or whatever the title is of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But there is something that he said that I do agree with, that there's nothing more Christian than feeding people.
Yes.
And in terms of the sentiment of doing goodwill, feeding starving people, I served for the majority of my career after being an infantry officer and going to Special Forces. The Special Forces motto, as you see in the picture behind me of 1st Special Forces Group, is De Oppresso Liber, to free the oppressed. That is our motto. I just didn't have that on my uniform. I lived that. The civilian population in Gaza, politics aside, political views, religious positions aside, they are being oppressed. Food, water, education, life, dignity. And I wanted to be a part of going in to help in some way. So I have no political aspirations. I have no political leanings. I have no desire to write a book or before doing these interviews, I don't even have social media, and I've never really been out onto the internet. This is all very overwhelming for me. But my wife was a big factor behind me going on the record. My wife being, again, a retired military officer, we understand a lot of the same values. And she explained to me, she said, no one else can tell this story. No one else was there. Not only were you there, you were on the sites, and no one else saw it through the eyes of your experience. In the places you've been, in the things that you've done, the lens you look at this through is different than most people have. You need to go on the record. The American people need to know this. My motivations in this are patriotic. I want to inform the American people, my fellow citizens, of what's going on in Gaza, what our taxpayers' dollars are funding, and what American citizens on the ground are being faced with. America needs to know.
So tell us what you saw, and I'm grateful to your wife for her encouragement on that. I think she's absolutely right. The United States is paying for this, and there is almost no information coming out of Gaza. The news media, of course, are barred. It's been going on for more than a couple of years now. It'll be 3 years in October, and the sense is that there's something profound going on, but of course there's no way to know what's going on. So what did you see when you arrived? What were your perceptions of Gaza?
So my initial perceptions of Gaza, just in terms of the physical aspect, is that I would just describe it as post-apocalyptic, something from, the akin to Terminator 2, when the T-100s are walking through the destroyed landscape. It's human depravity. It's the oppression of dignity. It's the entire area, like for example, in the south in Rafah. I saw pictures of Rafah prior to the current war, and there were nice buildings, there were beach resorts, there were street lights and neighborhoods, and now it is leveled to the ground. There is not a building that stands, and the rubble is piled up. And as you drive through Rafah to one of our points, secure distribution site number 3 was in Rafah, so we would have to drive through the old southern Rafah corridor to get there, and all of the homes just in piles and rubble, and you can see someone's couch that's hanging from a piece of rebar out of the second floor of a building, or a refrigerator smashed, or family photos that were on the wall that are now, shattered and broken. Like, these lives were just destroyed and taken. And that's the scene of Gaza. As you, on the news, airdrops were conducted over the last 48 hours, and journalists were prohibited or encouraged not to take video or pictures of the overhead scenery. Because if the world sees that, I think the world would step back and pause to say, what are we doing? What have we become?
Such has been the horror in Gaza that even Piers Morgan is now asking all the right questions to his Israeli friends. Who would have expected Piers to utter these words only a few months ago when he was flying the flag for Israel and defending their genocidal campaign in Gaza?
Why only the people in Gaza are not being allowed to even think about a future in a different place? Why, if they want to live in one of the Arab countries, or if they want to come to the US or to Europe, why not even giving them the option to discuss it? Why you say, no, you have to stay there for eternity, when all other citizens of the world are allowed to think about a future in a different place?
Okay, well, why don't Israelis move out of Israel then and let the Gazans go and live there?
Meanwhile, innocent Palestinians continue to get slaughtered in Gaza. As I said before, we have long gone past the stage of expressing our outrage using flowery words. It's now time to act, failing which every single collaborator of this unspeakable crime stands set to be condemned in history books. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.